Hello, and welcome to episode 28 of Aunt Laney's Kitchen. I am your host, Aunt Laney, and I am here to talk to you about my trip to Vermont, the food tour. Now, if you also listen to my other podcast, Quaint and Cozy KC, you will have heard the sites that I saw in Vermont, but I wanted to split them up and, talk about food on this podcast and then, talk about, the cool kind of historical things and just sightseeing, general sightseeing that I did in Vermont, just a lot easier. And I can get all the things in without, making it a 2 hour podcast. So let's start off with the fact that I went to the airport at 8 p.m. the night before. So this is like last month. And so that day we had tornado warnings in Kansas City. There was a lot of stuff going on. And my flight was supposed to leave, it kept moving. But my flight, I think, was originally supposed to leave at 5, and then it was 6. And then I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and spend the night at the airport, right? And people were making fun of me and whatever. Now, usually what I would have done is I just would have gotten up and gotten up and like maybe had the Uber pick me up at like, one or two and just kind of called it a day. But because of the weather and it was still kind of raining, I wanted to like, before it started raining again, I'm like, just get me out of here. So it was clear when I left around 8 p.m. and I got to the airport. And so that's kind of that's how it started off. Now, I have not been like I'd only been to the quote unquote new Kansas City airport like I think maybe once before because I went to Mexico a couple of years. So I hadn't flown on a plane in a couple of years either. So things had changed. And it was so crazy how much anxiety I had. And I used to fly all the time, but I hadn't flown in a couple of years. So I was like, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. So, anyways, I'm like, you know what? Maybe what I want to do is I want to like concentrate on maybe going to like a food court thing. Now, when I looked at, online, it said, okay, some of these places were open, until like 9 or 10. Well, on a Tuesday night, that was not necessarily the case. A lot of the places that weren't supposed to open it or close until like 9 or 10, they were closed by the time I got there at like, I think it was like eight something. So I'm like, okay, that's fine. I'll find something. So I found Safi Fresh. I think I'm pronouncing that right. And so I stopped by there and I was looking for because I knew I was spending the night in the airport, right? And so I was like, okay, I need something where I'm not going to be craving snacks. I don't want to be like walking around looking for snacks. I just want to, get something to stick to my ribs so I can kind of, I was kind of online all night because I knew I could sleep on the plane. And so I'm like, what can I get? So Safi Fresh, or I think it's Safi Fresh. It was open. And so I got a barbecue chicken bowl. So that had grilled chicken breast, shallots, peppers, mushrooms, cherry tomatoes, barbecue sauce, and white rice. And this was like comfort in a bowl. And they gave it, they said, well, you can either have it cold or hot. I had them warm it up for me. And it was definitely comfort in a bowl. It was the stick to your ribs kind of stuff that I grew up eating, that kind of food. And I really appreciated. Now, at first, I was like not sure if I wanted to do the barbecue sauce because there was already tomatoes. And part of me was like, maybe I should take the tomatoes off. But I was like, no, no, that's fine. I need as much food as I can, as I can handle, right? Because I knew it's gonna be a little bit before I would eat again. And so, like the baseline of that barbecue sauce was sweet and tangy. So that, but I felt like it went well with the grilled chicken. That, and again, the grilled chicken was like lightly seasoned. There was a little bit of like, on there. It wasn't, but I think it was perfect because you're putting all those ingredients. And sometimes if you over season things and you've got more than four or five ingredients in something, it can be a little much. So I got that fresh pop of flavor from the veggies, which I appreciated. And then I also kind of had like the comfort of the rice and the comfort of like the rice and the shallots gave me like that little kind of, and the peppers gave me that little kind of, just like a little bit of a pop to it. And of course, mushrooms. I love mushrooms so much. That kind of gave it an earthy kind of taste. So, in the best way, like that savory taste. And so that's where I started off. Okay. Now, I think that the following morning, I think I got like maybe I got like a quick breakfast sandwich, but I don't remember what I did. Like at that point, I was like, okay, I think I ended up grabbing a quick breakfast sandwich and but I don't remember where I got that breakfast sandwich from and I didn't take a picture or anything like that because I was just like, okay, let's eat before I, get back on the plane. And because I knew I wasn't going to be stopping for a while. So my next stop was I went to LaGuardia. Now I've never been to LaGuardia Airport because usually when I fly to the East Coast, I usually end up going through Baltimore or I end up going through Newark. But I didn't go through Newark this time. It was straight to LaGuardia, which again I was like a good adventure. So I ended up there. Now, I did have like a couple, I think I had like maybe a couple hours of a layover, so that was good. And everything was pretty, I didn't have to like haul too far to get to my gate. So I went to a place called Sunday Supper Trattoria. Now, at this place, and it was what I really appreciated about it is that everything was accessible. The food was accessible, like the pricing was accessible, like all of it was, it wasn't too much, it wasn't over the top. So I went and I got like a breakfast sandwich because I think the first place when I said breakfast sandwich before, I think what I had was like a little bagel. I think I actually had a bagel. This time I actually had a full-on breakfast sandwich and it had a side of potatoes, those the big kind of thick cut kind, like it's like a big chunk of it. So that sandwich had bacon, eggs, cheddar cheese, and like the bread was really soft. And I don't know if it was a brioche, but I wasn't quite sure. I was trying to look, but again, I was hungry, and and also you have to understand that's a busy airport. So if you want to sit down someplace, you got to stake out your place. You can't be sitting there like, I wonder how I'm going to. Nope, I had to take my stuff. I had to go where I had to go. That kind of thing. And that that was such a great meal. Like I remember sitting for like because I had more time, but I remember sitting for like 15 minutes after I finished and just like going, oof, this was really, really good. And it made me kind of think maybe I should be trying to like fly into LaGuardia just to eat because they had the food there looked just all delicious. It all looked good. Like the places I was passing, it all looked good. I'm like, oh my gosh, I could spend like a whole field trip in the airport just like eating, sampling food. So that was Sunday Supper Trattoria in LaGuardia Airport. Okay, now we're moving on. So now I've gotten back in the air. And I also, yeah, I got back in the air and it was actually pretty, it was totally a full flight going from LaGuardia to Vermont. I mean, it was a packed flight. So the next place I went was for dinner on a Wednesday night. It was Pulcinella. I think it's a Pulcinella's. And it was right by, so I stayed at this Holiday Inn Express in South Burlington, Vermont, and it was right across the parking lot. And so, because when I was looking at hotels and stuff like that, I was like, okay, I need something where I don't have to like keep Ubering everywhere in the sense of like, that first night. So I called in and I was looking around and they're like, oh my gosh, an amazing restaurant. And it's located well, it's not a little house, but it's a house and it has this homey kind of vibe to it and beautiful landscaping. It actually looks like somebody's grandma's house, but or somebody's auntie's house or something like that, but it had like patio seating. People were sitting on the patio. Like I opted to sit inside at the bar. It just had this really rustic kind of trattoria vibe to it. And so yeah, I was like, oh my gosh. And just lots of wood. And it was actually pretty packed, but I don't think it was just people visiting. I think they have regulars there as well. It's good. And so what I got there's like a yummy limoncello. That's what I started the meal off with. Now, I don't talk about my drinks a lot just because, usually I get an unsweetened iced tea or I get like a water, but I'm like, let me just get a drink. So I got a limoncello, which was delicious. And they had just that right amount of sweet and tart to it. And then they also brought out like this crusty bread, right, with some flavorful garlic and oregano laden olive oil, which I totally appreciated. So good. And so again, because I'm like super hungry because I've been like, running around airports, whatever. And I was like, okay, we're gonna eat this bread slowly. So I was slowly just really savoring the bread and the oil plate. And I ended up ordering a spaghetti alla romana, and that has like pancetta and caramelized onions and garlic and Parmesan cheese, and of course the spaghetti noodles. Now, sometimes when it comes to pasta, I feel like caramelized onions, they do too much. It's like, oh my gosh, it's too much. I prefer caramelized onions, honestly, on bread. However, if I am going to do a caramelized onion on pasta, for me, it's really my preference because I always think they taste good no matter what. My preference is for it to be like a thinner noodle. So this really worked because it brought out the taste and the aroma of all the other ingredients. It mixed really well with the pancetta and the Parmesan cheese, and the noodles really held their own, against these ingredients. And they were just the right texture, right? They weren't too soft, right? And they, making them mushy, and they weren't too crisp. Like I know you're like crisp noodles. What are you talking about? But we've all been to those spaghetti places where it's like, dang, y'all didn't cook the noodles all right, like all the way. Like everything else is good, but man, I'm getting to the end of this noodle. It's almost like you guys didn't put all the noodles into the spaghetti. And then for dessert, I chose the creme brulee. And oh my gosh, the top layer of this dessert, it had such a nice crispy texture. And then under it's kind of it was like just straight glass. I mean, not real glass, but it had that nice kind of like um thin layer, right? And I had to like like I kind of had to like take my spoon and gently, because I didn't want to just crack it or anything like that. Just a gentle little tap, a couple taps, broke through, and underneath all of that was a really delicious creamy custard. Now, as I stated before, this is the kind of neighborhood place where the staff has memorized the preferences of their regular customers. And I also think, if you're there, it's a great kind of cozy date night or solo dining like I did, or meeting up with a few friends before a show. It's that kind of place. And again, it's only open for dinner, it looks like, but it would be, I mean, if it were open for lunch, like a nice kind of like Saturday lunch, weekend lunch, however they would do it. It would be amazing. It's the kind of place where you want to walk around the grounds a little bit, just kind of sit and talk and just luxuriate in the experience. I would bet that's the kind of place where people get there at 5:15 and they don't leave till 8 o'clock, because you're just enjoying all the courses and you're enjoying the beautiful, fragrant flowers that are there and just watching everybody. And it's to me, it's one of those places where if I had, and I know in Kansas City we probably do have a very similar place, but if I, going to that place, I would just sit there. It'd be like one of my favorite places to go. Kind of like vacationing in your own city. I love restaurants and experiences like that. Okay, next up. So that was Wednesday because I flew in on the Wednesday. So that was Wednesday night. So the next day I did a lot of sightseeing. And I ended up going to, because I started off in Burlington and then I was doing a day in Montpelier, then I was coming back to do one more day in Burlington and then flying out. And I went and stayed close to the airport. So the next place I went, food wise, was the City Market Onion River Co-op. And, I decided to go there just because it was one of those things where I was like, you know what? I'm going to be here for like a couple more days. So I don't want to like keep going out to eat, and I don't want to keep having to take Ubers. Let me just get like some, kind of like kind of like meals on the go. So I ended up getting these delicious spring rolls that they made fresh. Then they had some delicious sushi there. And then of course they had some really nice flavored water. So I got, some sparkling water. So I got a couple of those. And I just got, and then they had one of those stick to your ribs meals where it was like a chicken. I believe it was like a chicken breast. And then it had like potatoes and like some veggies on there. So I'm like, okay, I'll have that be my hearty kind of lunch. And like so then I ended up, actually I think I made that dinner. I ended up, eating that, and it was so delicious, you guys. I was like, oh my gosh, this is super amazing. Just doing that. And that saved me so much money. Like the four flavored waters plus the meals, it came out to like maybe $26. So I got like four meals for $26. And that's again, I like when I go and experience a new place, especially like I'm not like, oh my gosh, I got to squeeze all these pennies. But it does, but I knew I was going to other places. So I wanted to be economical, but also, I wanted to support like local businesses as well. And that just kind of works. And that's something that anytime I travel when we were growing up, there'd be times when we would go out to restaurants, but then my mom would also be like, okay, so if we're staying here a week, we're not going to eat out every day. So we're going to have a couple days, like 3 days where I'm going to get meals because we'd be staying, with cousins or whatever. We're going to eat at home. Okay. We're not going to order pizza. We're just going to eat at home, with her cousins or whatever. So there'd be 3 days of that. So I kind of was keeping that in my mind because I knew in Montpelier I was going to be going out to eat. Um, so after, eating on that, and then I went ahead. So that takes us into Friday. And, where Thursday and Friday I ate on these meals. And then Friday I went to a cheese making tour at Shelburne Farms. And that was so, oh my gosh, I had so much fun doing that. I got to try all these different cheeses. They were delicious. I didn't end up buying any cheeses because I knew I was going to be traveling and I was like, oh, I'm going to be traveling. So, the next place I was staying at did not have a refrigerator. So I didn't want to risk that. But it was good. It was good. And I talked about this on my Quaint and Cozy KC Vermont podcast, but just getting, but it rained the whole time I was there, for most of it. But it was still beautiful watching Lake Champlain, um, hanging out with all these, different people from different walks of life, walking the trails. Like it was, like it was just, it was a downpour, but still we made it work. And just kind of watching and seeing how the cheese was made, it was beautiful. Such a great experience. Now, this brings us to Saturday. And on Saturday, I had to take the Greyhound bus. I had to go to a bus stop. And again, a lot of places don't have like their mass transit center. It's just very different than it was like 10, 15 years ago. So I go to the Greyhound bus stop and there's other people there, but I'm like, gosh, I'm kind of hungry, and but I don't want to eat too much because I know I'm going to Montpelier because this bus was leaving around, I think the bus left around maybe 11 or something. So I didn't want to and I'd already had some breakfast, but I knew I was going to want to do a lunch in Montpelier. So I went into the Gray Jay, which is not very far away from it. And this is cute little bistro. It's like a little luncheonette, breakfast luncheonette bistro. I love those. And I went and I was like, okay, I need something to take the edge off, or just something with me just in case there's delays. So I went and I got I think I got a bottled water and then I got a this pastry and it looked like it was kind of again, this one isn't posting yet. I've got to like actually do the write up because I finally found the picture. And it was just like this light colored pastry, and then it looked like fig, some kind of fig in there as the fruit. It was so, or maybe it was like, no, maybe it was apricot, but it was something because maybe I was looking at the fig because there was a lot of just beautiful things. They had dates and figs and all that stuff, but I think I got the apricot one. And so it was super good. Then next, when I got into Montpelier, and the drive's like, 30, 40 minutes, and it was a beautiful drive. And the buses have really Greyhound has come a long way, y'all. I was like, okay, Greyhound. Um, so then the Filibuster is where I went in Montpelier, and there were some people, like locals walking around. They're like, hey, because they saw me with all my stuff, wheeling my bags and stuff. And I was like, okay, where can I go? Because I knew I also wanted to go to the museum, and the museum closed at 4, and I was supposed to check in at 3. So I'm like, I already knew I was going to be taking my stuff with me, but I just wanted to eat first before I, started doing all that stuff. And so they recommended the Filibuster. And I was like, oh my gosh, it's called Filibuster, but I was calling it the Filibuster. But it's such a cute restaurant. It was kind of has that old brick architecture building, and you walk inside and it's kind of stately. And it's just this bistro, and they've got indoor, outdoor seating. But y'all, it was hot. I was like, I'm not sitting outside and I ended up getting like a BLT with some fries. So I was like, there is no way I'm gonna sit out here and fry because that's what was literally going to happen. I was gonna get super hot. Trying to eat and get super hot. Like I'll eat outside if I'm eating like a Caesar salad, something that's cool, but I am not gonna eat outside if I know that I'm gonna be eating something that's got any kind of like, it's been cooked or anything. So this is Filibuster Restaurant and Bar. The BLT it came with like a side of fries and a pickle spear. Oh my gosh, the pickle spear was nice and crisp. It was like perfect. And I'm not the hugest pickle fan. Like I like a good pickle, but like I'm not such a pickle fan where I'm like, oh look, this pickle that's like looks, it's not crisp or anything. I'm not eating it anyway. I'm like, The fries were served really crisp and hot. I really appreciate that. And I generally ask for barbecue sauce when I'm eating because I'm not a big ketchup person. So they handed me this barbecue sauce. They put it on the plate. It was really smoky flavored. It was so good. Now the sandwich had a really nice crunch to it, and that lettuce was fresh. Tomato, bacon, all of just tasted amazing. The bacon had a nice texture to it. It was cooked just right. It wasn't too like crisp where you're like, oh my gosh, I just lost a molar. But it also wasn't where it's like, can we heat this up? Is this cooked? They had that nice blend, crispy and tender at the same time. Um, Also, they did have a light and stormy, and I did not like. I'm looking. I'm like, did I mention that in there? That there's a light and stormy, and I don't think I did. So, um, I will definitely tell you I had this light and stormy, and it was mocktail. It was ginger beer, lime juice, and maple syrup. Super good, and it's the Vermont maple syrup because I kept trying to find places that served like Vermont maple syrup, and those places all had a long line out the door. I'm like, I'm not doing that, but I've got to try it. And so that's kind of like what I came up with was let's get a mocktail that's got some maple syrup in it. And there's another one they had like an iced maple latte, but I didn't want to drink that with my BLT. I just didn't think it was going to go very well. Okay, now we're gonna go on. So, and this place is really good for solo dining, like I did. A date night or an outing with family and friends. Like one of those things where it's like, oh, hey, let's meet up and let's meet up for a weekend lunch. I saw a lot of people doing that when I was there on Saturday, or let's go, meet up for a nice kind of cozy romantic dinner, or hey, let's just, let's just go over there as a solo person and get a table and just enjoy our food. I love how the stigma of eating by yourself is kind of like it's just kind of fading away. And I love that because I'm someone who loves eating by themselves because sometimes when you eat with somebody, you got to keep a conversation going or there's a lot going on and sometimes I just want to sit and enjoy the food and it makes it easier when I'm trying to review food because anytime I eat with someone, I always feel like, oh my gosh, I'm taking pictures. I'm like not, I'm not as dialed in as I normally would be. Now, the next place I went to, so I stayed at Inn at Montpelier, and they have a couple of cute little like restaurants there. And one of the one I went to was Penzo, and it's like a pizza kind of trattoria situation. I did a lot of trattoria, and like I swear I did. Um, so it's Penzo Pizza Company, and it's in Montpelier, and I started off with the bee's knees cocktail. It was like a real cocktail because, again, it was my hotel. Like, that's where I was staying. Now, this was made with Bar Hill gin, lemon juice, and honey. So it had a nice, sweet, tart flavor profile. And as well, and it took the edge off my super hectic day because I was like running around. The rain was not supposed to come. The rain came an hour and a half before it was scheduled to. So I got soaked. Like I got so soaked. So I had to like go and change my clothes, like take another shower after the shower I took I had to take another shower, get, dry off all the stuff, and then come down for dinner. And the next thing that I ordered was the That'll Do pizza. I love that name. And that had mozzarella, capicola, bacon, and sausage. And it looks like, and I've taken a picture, and it should be if it's not scheduled now, if it's not already up there, it'll be up there in the next week or so. But the pizza is very rustic looking, and I mean that in the best way. It looks like one of those pizzas where you go to somebody's house, they're like, "Hey, what do you want on your pizza?" And you kind of like make your pizza, and then they kind of put it in the oven and that's what happened. And there wasn't I appreciated that it wasn't overloaded with cheese. Now listen, I love cheese. I love me some cheese. But sometimes if there's too much cheese on certain types of crusts, pizza crust, it's too much. It gets soggy, it gets like kind of like chewy. It's not good, but they had the right amount of everything on this pizza. Now, this restaurant does have both indoor and outdoor seating available. And again, another great place for solo dining, a cozy date night, or a small group outing, probably 4 to 6 people, I would say tops. That it's a kind of restaurant for that. Like maybe you have like, you're doing like 3 couples or something like that. I think 8 would be too, that would be stretching if you're all trying to sit together. If you're kind of like sitting around at other tables, like if you wanted to sit next to each other, like at a separate table, that might work. But just from what I like seeing it, like a big party in there, it would be kind of challenging. Let's see here. But as always, I always say, hey, that's my opinion. If you are listening and you're in the Montpelier area or you're going to be visiting, just call them up. Call them up. I just wanted to kind of give you guys my viewpoint of that, but there's nothing says you can't call up the restaurant and kind of see for yourself, or maybe they can make some accommodations for you. Okay, now, as much as I wanted to stay in Montpelier forever because it's such a cute town, I knew like the next day I had to get ready to go. Now, they had breakfast at the hotel, which, again, made it really awesome. Super good breakfast. They had like these little mini quiches there. It was a lot, and in fact, let's just do a little break here. Let's do a hotel breakfast break. I stayed in three different hotels, and but all three hotels had great breakfasts. And now they're really like these continental breakfasts. It used to be you got like a bagel, some orange juice, and that's that it was either or some muffins or whatever. And if you were lucky, you got some kind of waffle, and you got some eggs that look like really sad, and then you got some kind of like weird looking sausage. That's kind of what you got, and you're like, okay, whatever, it's fine. It's free or whatever. But these people now, they are trying to compete on that breakfast. Okay, I mean, they're putting out all the stops on breakfast. So I definitely appreciated that. So all three hotels I stayed in, breakfasts were amazing. Okay. So when I first booked that ticket back, I booked the wrong ticket. I booked a ticket back to Burlington, or I booked a ticket from Burlington to Montpelier, but wait, I've got to get out of Montpelier. So I ended up like luckily I was able to catch that mistake, and I ended up getting like maybe the last ticket on the Montpelier bus back to Burlington, and I thought that was leaving at 11, but of course they want you to stay in the town all day, right? But a lot of places in Montpelier close at 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. But the Langdon Inn, like the well, not the inn, but the Langdon Tavern, it stays open until like I think like later. And so I was like, yay, that is Langdon Street Tavern. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna kind of walk around town, take some more pictures. Then I'm gonna kind of like around, I think it was like 1 o'clock. I went and I said, hey, is it okay if I just kind of commandeer a table back here? My bus doesn't leave till like 5 o'clock, so I'm gonna leave out of here at 4:30 because it was probably like maybe 4 blocks away, and I just kind of like to get there kind of on the earlier side, whatever. And so I sat there and I was able to eat, and I, ordered dessert, all of it. Let me tell you what I did. I ordered a Caesar salad, and that was made with sautéed broccolini and grilled chicken. And you know what? At first, I was skeptical. I like broccolini, but I've never had it with Caesar salad and, Caesar salad dressing, all that stuff. And Caesar salad sometimes is not always the move. Okay. Sometimes Caesar salad should not be the go-to for every green thing, but it worked for the broccolini. Man, that broccolini was so buttery. It was so good. It like the Caesar salad, everything went well with it. And the grilled chicken had that nice tenderness, and they topped it with this white shredded cheese. It was so good. They topped it with this white shredded cheese, and it was like this would be a comfort dish that I would have during the warm weather months, right? It totally worked for that. Then it was served with fries, and my favorite texture of fries, hot and with a crispy texture, right? And it gave a nice contrast to the Caesar salad. Now for dessert, I chose the strawberry cream cake, and that it had like a light cream crumbly texture. It blended really well with the fresh strawberries. Now this is a great place. Like this is a place where I think people go and watch the games. I think this is a place where you meet up with coworkers for lunch or after work bite to eat. And again, they're very welcoming to solo diners. They have brunches on Sunday, so that might be a good kind of a brunch date situation. Or if you've got an outing with family and friends, and they've got big booths, so you could probably accommodate at least 6 people in their booths. And then they have some tables in the back. So, I guess always call the restaurant before you just come in with, 20 of your closest friends or something like that. Always be, just because you're like, oh my gosh, we want to hang out, you got to let people know. I mean, I always nag about that, but that helps everybody, just so your service can give you the best experience and you can have the best experience as well. So once I was done at Langdon, I, went back to the next hotel, and they had like a hotel store. I think I got like some kind of like frozen dinner or something like that. I just needed something to take a little bit of the edge off, like because I was hungry because I ate at like 1 and I just kind of lingered. And so, and I got back then because the bus was running late. So I got back around 7 and I'm like, well, I don't want to wake up in the middle of the night like hungry and whatever. And I knew they were gonna have a good breakfast. So I'm like, let me just get a little something to get the edge off. So I got I think I want to say I got some kind of like frozen hot pocket thing or something like that. Just something again to kind of tide me over till the next day. And so, I flew out. I was headed back to Kansas City, but before I went back, I ended up at Reagan Washington National Airport. And I have not been there in years. So I was like, okay, I was trying to like get my bearings. And so I was looking for places to kind of stop because I think this layover was not as long as it was longer, but it wasn't as long as the one I had in LaGuardia. So I'm like, okay, let's try it because there's so many, oh my gosh, there's so many cool, cute little places. But I wanted to get closer to my terminal, right? Because it's a pretty big airport. So what I did was I was like, okay, I haven't been to PF Chang's in a while. And it actually had a place to sit. Some places are just like little kiosk things, and you have to go find some place to sit and whatever. But I ended up being able to sit at the bar because they kind of like you wait there and they kind of let you in. And I sat at the bar and I had a lot of room there. And I ended up ordering the Singapore street noodles. Now, these are like the noodles are very thinly cut because I like a good thinly cut noodle. They're like thinly cut rice noodles, and it had curry sauce and shrimp and chicken and onion and like kind of chopped up veggies, sliced up veggies. And now the way they did this curry sauce, it was blended just with a light touch. I could taste it, but I wasn't overwhelmed by it. It didn't take over everything else. And the vegetables, the thinly sliced vegetables, it created a nice crunchy texture that complemented the noodles, the texture and flavor of the noodles. And I thought that the shrimp and the chicken added a nice hearty flavor profile to the this dish. And this dish was surprisingly light. I was like, oh my gosh, this dish is a little, it's surprisingly light. And of course, I washed it down with my unsweetened iced tea because that's usually how I roll, especially in the airport. Um, Now let's see here. I'm trying to see like, it's like I'm looking at my list because I went to a lot of places, guys. And I believe that that is it. Those are all the places I talked about, all the places that I went. And when I was on my way back to Kansas City, it was a little bit earlier in the day, but I just decided, I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go home. And I've got, some food there and I'll be fine. Like I had like, I think I just had like a frozen meal or something like that. And I was like, okay, I got one of those. That's fine. And so that's what I did. And that wraps up my time in Vermont, my little food adventure in Vermont. Now, I did want to kind of prep you for something. I'm doing a new segment and it's called Recipe in Progress. And I'll talk more about that in the next episode, but just kind of be on the lookout for that. And that is kind of like my version of like, hey, look, I'm just gonna throw up a picture and then kind of walk you through like it's a quick and dirty kind of recipe. And I will go back and I will formalize things, but this that way I don't have such a backlog. And I'll kind of wax more poetic about that in the next episode. So thank you guys so much for listening. This is Aunt Laney's Kitchen. You can find me at auntlaneyskitchen.com. You can also find me on Instagram, Aunt Laney's Kitchen, Facebook, Aunt Laney's Kitchen, the tickety tockety on Aunt Laney's Kitchen as well. Take care, everybody, and I will talk to you soon.